Hi, this is Candy from Candy Hearts Art. You guys requested a video on drawing a hand. That was the option that won on the poll. So I'm just going to teach you a really basic way to draw a hand. So first of all, I start with basic shapes. Pick a color, any color. This is the first kind of shape that you want to start with. This kind of represents like the palm of the hand and like where the wrist is going to attach to the hand, if that makes sense. You can have this anyway, like if you wanted to have the wrist bent a little bit, you can just move this and change the angle to have it more like this. This is like just a very basic, simple way that I've learnt to draw hands. There's a lot of different techniques that a lot of different artists will teach you. If you go on YouTube, there are a lot of hand tutorials and that kind of thing. Yeah, I like to start with this kind of basic shape. Think of it like a bell, and it's kind of longer on one side than it is on the other. And if you think of like your own hand, you can use your own hand as a reference point. So like the pinky is going to be on this side of the hand closest to you, and this side is going to be where your pointer finger is. Basically, hands follow all the same shape. It's kind of like a mitten or like a curve where it gets longer to shorter, so you can just do a very rough kind of sketch in like that. Or if you want to do a dynamic kind of hand pose, which I prefer to do, I like to draw in my pointer finger first. And they've got 3 joints, so if you think of it like 3 like little circles, or if you're doing a female hand, you can even simplify that shape even further and go just with 2 joints, which gives it more of a feminine sort of look like this. And you put the knuckle like where it joins. Some people like to draw it like, I'm just going to turn it around for this. I'm a bit of canvas flipper. So this line here just represents like the bottom of where the palm would be. And you can use these shapes. So like this is like a cylinder. And then this kind of shape at the top is more like a, I don't know, fingertip. Kind of like this shape. And you've got to imagine it in a 3D space, right? So that's like a 3D object. And fingers have planes. So if you know what that is, it's kind of just like this side would be the top of the finger. This would be where the highlight of the finger is. And underneath here, this would be like where the shadow comes in. So you can just break this up into 2 joints. And then of course it's going to have a little fingernail on the tip there. And then the next one, I just like to draw in like this kind of shape to start the cylinder. You can imagine that like a cylinder shape. And then these fingers are going to be curled back, and they kind of like get smaller as we go along. So 1, 2, 3, we want 4 fingers. And we can just alter things. If all the fingers are not fitting, we might have to alter the hand shape here. Never feel afraid to go back and change things. That's what the warp tool is for if you use Procreate. There we go. And so then this will be like the side plane of the hand where the palm is. And this is where the pinky finger is here. So you kind of just like, I like to sketch in those first joints first. And then if you think of like a pointing finger, these fingers are going to be curled back like this. And they kind of like follow an angle like that. But fingers are curved, so you just kind of have to curve on the edges there. And then this one, the pinky, I normally still keep the 3 joints, even if it is a female hand, because you need this to kind of like come up under here like that. And then the knuckle will be there. That's just a very basic way to draw a hand. And then I go in with a darker color, so that's a really rough sketch. And I'll just lower the opacity. Get rid of that fingertip, we don't need that. So I hope that makes sense. And yeah, so I'll just go in with my darker color now, just to outline it. You can keep it this way, just to check. And then you sort of notice that the fingers, I don't know if you can see that properly with that color that I've chosen, but they're kind of like on the wrong angle there. So then you can come back in with this darker color and just fix things up. And then I'll show you about how to do the thumb. And we're going to get rid of that line because it wouldn't be in a hand. And the finger, it kind of like comes out like that in a hand shape. These are just things you'll learn with practice. And the fingers shouldn't be like this so much, so they should be probably more hidden. So I just like to correct as I go. And in between fingers, it's not really a V shape, it's more like a U shape. So if this finger's separated a little bit, you just put your little U shape. And like so, and you draw your little fingernail in there now. It'll come down like so, and pinkies have a bit of a bulbous shape to them. Like that. This won't be perfect, I'm not drawing it from a reference or anything, but it's just basically how to get your basic hand shapes. There we go, little fingernail. And then if you really want to get fancy, you can go in and shade it. Turn that opacity down on that one, get rid of the extra fingers, how they come out a bit. Clean up the sketch a little bit, the under sketch. And then I like to just do like a little shading in a color. I have a shading brush for this. It's just a flat square brush. And that pinky looks a little bit odd. I'm looking at that now. I'm thinking maybe I should go clean that up a little bit. The nail looks a bit funny. So go in there and fix that one up. Back to my sketching brush. That's a bit better because it was a bit more side on. There we go. Yep. So that's one example of a hand, and if you wanted to shade it, you just go in and think about where the light sources are coming from. So if you think of this side as where the shadows are coming from underneath, and this side is where the light's shining on it, then you just go in with a shadow from underneath. You would think about like, oh, that's the side of the hand there, so that will probably be in shadow. And then underneath the pinky here would definitely be in shadow. And on the sides, just underneath the finger there like that. And just underneath this one. Very simple way to shade it. And then you get your lighter color, and I'd like, if you want to, you can add another layer so that if you make any mistakes you can just delete the layer. You just go in on top there like that, add some nice little highlights, and I like to use a bigger brush, so turn up the brush size for the top of the hand just to shade it quicker. There we go. And here. And if you want to, you can go in with the highlights and add some little knuckles in too. So make your brush a bit smaller and just add some little circles. Shapes for knuckles there. And I hope that all makes sense. And then get rid of these little arrows. If you really want to get fancy with shading, I like to add a little rim light in with just my pencil sketch pen, and I'll put that on add on layer mode. Maybe make it a bit saturated. And then you just come in here like this. I need to turn the brush size up a bit. That just makes some little rim lighting. This is kind of more of an intuitive thing. You get used to like where to put these things, break up the line a little bit. Put as many of them as you like, and voila, a hand. Ta-da!